All right, it worked. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to psychology class. I am Mr. Fuller, and this is Fuller's 5 questions with sound effects. However, you might notice today there was no intro music. That's correct. But if you listen carefully, you can hear. You hear it? There's birds. I'm outside today. And that's because yesterday I played the intro song and it was like, 45 seconds, maybe a minute. And then it got pulled off of YouTube. And then I tried to fix the copyright issues and went back on YouTube and then got pulled off YouTube. And basically, spent my whole morning trying to get the video uploaded. So today I decided, you know what, let's try something different. Let's go without the song and let's just enjoy the beautiful day because it is a beautiful day right now and it's shaping up to be amazing. So I hope that you are in a good spot and you are able to get out and enjoy this day as best you can, socially distanced, and just really embrace what an amazing end of April we have here. So having said all that, let's go. Okay, psychology class. Here's our 5 questions. One, what's the new unit? That's the same as yesterday. We are starting altered states of consciousness for our class. That's drugs and addiction. Now, I do want to mention that like you've learned about drugs and addiction in other classes, health classes and things like that. We try to look more at the impact on the brain itself, and less about it's not meant to it's to be informative. Okay, you guys are juniors and seniors in high school and you're going to be entering a period of time in your life where a number of the drugs that we're going to be talking about that are harmful are going to be more prevalent in your lives, whether you or just people around you or whatever are using them. And I think if nothing else, it's good to understand what those are actually doing, because sometimes you just get used to the message of like, well, this is bad for you, and it is, but that message falls a little bit short. So we're going to look more specifically, like, what is it doing to your brain? What is it doing to your body? How's it affecting social lives? Things like that. Okay. 2, will I share the notes in Google Classroom? Yes, I'm going to put these notes on Google Classroom today. A number of people have said they like looking over them on their own time, so I will do that. 3, didn't do last week's assignment. Can I still do it? Yes, please do. This is critical. This class, we got a lot of kids who are like doing everything on day 1 or 2 and they're crushing it. And then I have some students who still have not done a number of the assignments. And what's going to end up happening is that's going to, in order to pass the class, you have to complete the assignments I give. I'm giving 1 to 2 quizzes per week or whatever it is. I'm trying to keep the workload manageable. If you have any issues, you can always contact me, but you have to get those done in order to pass the class. Okay. And I understand that for seniors, you might say, well, I don't need this as a credit. I would hope that you'll find the motivation to get on the grind, so to speak, and to do what you're supposed to do anyway. Okay. 4, what's required this week? I got 2 quizzes for you, both on drugs and addiction. I think one is like 10 questions, the other's 15. So it's not too bad. I would highly recommend looking at the notes and watching the crash course that I posted before you do the quizzes, because you're going to get more out of it. Okay. So take advantage of those resources. And finally, are we meeting today? And the answer is actually no. We're not meeting today. I actually have a number of other meetings that I have to go to today on Zoom and Google Classroom and things like, or Google Meets and stuff like that. So rather than trying to force that in there based on the attendance I've had so far this week, I think we're going to make it through the day without a Google meeting. Tomorrow is actually a day off, as is Monday. I might post a video tomorrow. However, I won't post any new work. Okay. So, yeah, you can watch that if you want, but we will not meet today. However, if you have a burning question that needs to be answered, email, remind, tweet at me at NTFuller11. send me a message and say, Mr. Fuller, I would like to do a Google Meet. Because no matter what, even if it's like, say like, hey, Mr. Fuller, can we meet at like 7:00 tonight on Google Meets? Sure, we can make that work. If it's like a 10 to 15 minute thing, it doesn't matter what time of day. In fact, I've started thinking maybe, I do these Google meetings from 10 to 11:30 in the morning. Maybe I should do them from 10 to 11:30 at night and see what happens to our maybe attendance will be better, or maybe it's just more accessible for you guys. So anyway, there you go. That's it for Fuller's 5 today. Let's get into picking up on the notes that we left off with yesterday. So today let's talk about psychoactive drugs. And if you remember yesterday, I said a psychoactive drug is a drug that alters the brain, the perceptions, moods, or behaviors in the brain. Okay. So that's why, when we said what's the number one used psychoactive drug in America, most of you, well, some of you might have gotten it right, but a lot of people weren't getting it right because they did not think of what drug was it again. That's right, caffeine. It was caffeine. But it does alter our perceptions, moods, or behaviors. And if anybody out there has had an espresso coffee or something like that, you will notice did that change? How did that alter your perceptions, moods, or behaviors? Might have made you happier, might have made you anxious, might have made you angrier. It might have made you talk faster or have a little bit more energy, be a little bit more emotional, something like that. Those are some of the common reactions to something like caffeine, because caffeine is, oh, darn, it would have been nice if it would have been the right type of drug. But there are different types of drugs. We have depressants. Depressants would be alcohol, would be one of your biggest depressants there. We have stimulants. That would be caffeine. Also, stimulants would be cocaine, methamphetamine, nicotine. Nicotine would be one of the bigger stimulants as well. Okay, and then we have hallucinogens. Hallucinogen is a drug that would distort perceptions and literally cause people to have hallucinations. It would include things like LSD, types of mushrooms, huffing markers or something like that. So basically, it's the type of drug that makes you see things, hear things, and sense things that aren't actually there. So why anybody would want to do it, I don't know. Our food or sugar drugs. You can watch that clip if you want, because I'm going to post this. It's all very interesting, entertaining. The bottom line is, are food and sugar considered drugs? Well, they have experimented with rats, okay? And they gave rats water, and then they gave rats water with cocaine in it. And then they gave rats water with sugar in it. And the rats overwhelmingly chose the water with sugar in it. And there's new evidence that sugar is actually having a chemical reaction on our brain, which could classify it as a psychoactive drug. Also, sugar is a naturally occurring substance because we find sugar where? And don't just say in sugar shakers or grocery store, stuff like that. Sugar is a form of glucose, right? It's glucose, which is generally found in fruits and vegetables. That's naturally occurring sugar, but when we add sugar, it magnifies that, and it does have an effect on our brain. If you want to watch a great movie about it, there's a movie called That Sugar Film. It's on Amazon Prime, and I believe it's a free movie on Amazon Prime. You can probably find it on YouTube too if you want. Why would you ever want to watch this? It's actually pretty fun to watch. It's a good movie. We'd watch part of it in class. And then also, again, with the amount of time that you got on your hands, you're probably sitting around watching lots of YouTube or Netflix or whatever. Why not check out something that might benefit your life too? So again, is food and sugar, are they drugs? Technically, no. However, we're starting to realize that sugar and food can impact our brain, and maybe we're switching. We need to reclassify what a psychoactive drug is to make that distinction. So anyway, dopamine. Let's see. We're running right into dopamine here. I think we're talking about neurotransmitters that are activated by types of drugs. Okay, so dopamine is our pleasure, reward, movement, attention, memory. neurotransmitter. It is in it stimulates the production of cocaine, methamphetamine, amphetamine, all drugs, serotonin, mood, sleep, sexual desire, appetite. You'll find that in MDMA, that's ecstasy, LSD, cocaine, and then also glutamate. Yeah, I was going to say here, there you go, learning, cognition, and memory. Alcohol does not help with any of those activities. It suppresses it, okay? So basically, all these neurotransmitters are impacted by the types of drugs. Now, take a look at like something like dopamine. The thing there is, and we don't have... trying to look here. Okay, so if we look at like something like dopamine, right? Something like cocaine or like heroin will have a similar effect as dopamine. That's your pleasure and reward sensor. So I'm going to remove all this so we can just focus on dopamine. Okay. So yesterday we talked about, heroin is so highly addictive, meaning just trying it like once or twice, you might actually become addicted. This is the reason, because it will stimulate a similar impact as dopamine, so much so that your brain will get this huge high, right? Gets a huge high, and that's basically happening inside the brain. It stimulates the production of dopamine. The problem here is that over time, that your brain will lose the ability to produce the dopamine on its own. So if you think of something that makes you happy, right now, whatever you just thought of or said out loud or whatever, that makes you happy. And you get a release of dopamine when you, whatever that thing is. If you start using a drug like heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, stuff like that, now the drug gives you the release of dopamine. And in a very short amount of time, you lose the ability to develop dopamine on your own. And basically the only way to get off of, or the only way to get, dopamine, which is what makes us happy, is by using the drug. That's why they're so addictive, right? That's why if you become addicted to heroin, what they give you to get off of heroin is called methadone. And methadone is just a legal, less potent version of heroin. So heroin is the drug that, people become addicted to, and it produces large dopamine release and it produces high. Methadone is basically the same thing, only to a lesser extent. So it's kind of like weaning you off of the actual drug. That's how strong this stuff is. So but so there again, we talked about just a little bit ago, like drugs actually influence the chemical makeup of your brain. So it's not just like, don't do this because it's bad for you. It's like literally altering the chemistry of your brain. And if you remember, in the last unit, they talked about the brain isn't fully developed till you're about age 25. The brain's ability to adapt and change over time is called plasticity. So it's literally impacting the chemistry of your brain. Oh, okay. Is addiction a disease? Yeah. When I was your age, they started talking about this, like, is addiction a disease? And people would say, well, no, it's a choice. And certainly we can look at that. And some people would say, like, oh, by calling it a disease, we're just making an excuse for a group of people who are making choices. Now, if we follow that line of logic, think a look here what a disease is. A disease is a particular abnormal condition that negatively affects the structure or function of part or all of an organism. And that is not due to any external injury. So you think of something like a disease, right? Let's take lung cancer, for example. Okay. When we think of like addiction, we think like it's all just based on a person's choices. You think of something like lung cancer, like, well, people can't help that they get cancer. But really, when you think about it, we cannot help that completely. However, there are certain choices that make things like lung cancer a disease more likely, correct? So what sorts of decisions do people with lung what sorts of decisions do people make that would increase their likelihood of developing lung cancer? Right, smoking. Okay, so in a sense, diseases are not choices, but we do make choices that impact our likelihood of developing diseases. And if we take that same mentality and apply it to addiction, it does make sense. Did we make choices that made us more likely to become addicted to something? Yes, but addiction then becomes a abnormal condition that negatively affects the structure or function of all or part of an organism, and that is not due to any external injury. So we can see that, like, actually addiction is a disease. Take another disease. Take something like diabetes. That would be another condition, right? Is that a medical condition that people develop? Yes. Are there decisions that people make that increase the likelihood of developing something like diabetes? The answer is yeah. And what would be the decisions that they're making? Dietary decisions. It's certainly something that maybe you had a genetic predisposition to developing, but it's also something that people have some control over. So again, addiction, you might have a genetic predisposition to developing it, and the choices that people make influence the likelihood that they develop addiction. It is defined as a disease by most medical associations, including the American Medical Association. There you go. Let you look at that on your own. Understanding addiction. Okay, dependence. Physiological or psychological need to take more of a drug after continued use. So basically, okay, let's take this one actually. Let's go to caffeine and coffee. How many people, you or your parents, drink coffee? And dependence would be like when you first start drinking coffee, let's say in the mornings. Well, actually, I'll use myself. So I didn't really drink coffee until the birth of my third son because he did not always sleep through the night. And that was, I was teaching at the time, and it was long days and long nights. And that's when I really started drinking more coffee. And at first it was just to get an energy boost. But now if I start the day without coffee, I feel like I am lagging behind. That's dependence. I am now more dependent on it. Am I addicted to caffeine? I don't necessarily call it an addiction. However, when you have to continue taking something, then that is a dependence. Okay. A person has trouble functioning without it. That's how you get people who get pulled over for like their 5th DUI and they have a drug, they have a blood alcohol level of like 0.35. Well, 0.35, most people cannot get that drunk because they are going to be blacked out. They're going to pass out. They can't function at that level. 0.4, you're starting to near death, and probably it's a little bit higher than that too, when more people are going to start actually overdosing. But you will hear about people getting pulled over. Legal limit is 0.08. That's your blood alcohol level. You'll hear people get pulled over like a 0.35 blood alcohol level. Again, normal people can't drive at that level because they can't find their car. And I'm not making a joke. It's just like they're at such an inebriated state that they can't function. But somebody who's an alcoholic, when they're drinking alcohol, they're not becoming more intoxicated. They're just getting back to their normal level. That's in no way to say that they're functioning at a normal level. However, they're much more able to function at that level of alcohol, and they might feel like they're more in control. However, they are not. I hope that made sense. Sometimes I do better at explaining things when you guys are in the room, because then I can answer questions and I can look at your confused faces and see that I did or did not explain something well. But dependence is just basically you can't function without it. Withdrawal is distress that's felt when the drug is not present. So if somebody who is addicted to a drug so let's go back to the caffeine example. If I start my day without coffee and like I develop a headache, that's my body saying, hey, you don't have what you are dependent on, and you need to take that. That's, again, we talked about that the other day, liquor stores being open. Somebody who was an alcoholic who all of a sudden has no access to alcohol is going to feel some pretty significant withdrawal symptoms, and those can be very harmful and even deadly. Yeah, headaches, stress, shaking, annoyance, etc. Tolerance, need for more of a chemical for it to produce the desired effect. So again, so a small cup of coffee, someone needs 2 cups of coffee or espresso or whatever it is. They got to take more of the chemical in order to get the effect that they're looking for. Okay, so that's just some of the early basics of addiction. I'm going to stop there for today. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you're staying safe and healthy and happy. And I hope you're able to get out and enjoy this beautiful day. And as always, remember, charge those Chromebooks. Thanks for watching.